Football's coming home. Hello and welcome to my commentary of, well, we're now into the final. It's today and tomorrow this Meltwater Gold Money tournament will be decided. And today is a very important day. If anyone gets a lead over the 4 games, it gives them a big advantage going into the next day because their opponent has to catch them up, has to get a plus score tomorrow. But as we saw, not impossible. Now, over to the standings, and we can see what the final is. And the final is basically Aronian versus Artemiev. And this is a big thing for both of these players. You got Aronian, who hasn't won a major event now for a long time. He's obviously one of the most experienced and best players in the world, but he hasn't done it. And could this also be Artemiev's breakthrough competition? I want to break free. Could this be his moment? The semi-finals very interesting. Magnus versus Ding, but it is only a battle for 3rd and 4th place. So now we're only going to look at one game from each of these the first day's events, because there was 3 draws and 1 win. And we're going to start with a final, and in the final it was Aronian who won 1 game after the other 3 games being a draw. Remember, 4 games of rapid chess played on the first day. Tomorrow will be the same. If Aronian, therefore he won today, if he draws 2-2 tomorrow, he's the champion. Can Artemiev catch him up? So let's have a look at this game between Aronian and Vladislav. It started off with Aronian going d4, and after knight to f3, bishop to f5. And this is quite a peculiar move already. It's not standard to bring your bishops out before your knights. If anything, in the Soviet school of chess, they teach you to bring your knights out before your bishops, develop your knights before your bishops. This is the standard way of moving. And one thing I found in these openings, whenever you get d4, d5 on the board and your opponent does play this bishop here, from the point of view when I'm playing from whites, I always try to do 2 things here, and this is something I've learned from actually a game I remember Magnus cool, that'd be a good player, wouldn't it? A mix between Magnus and anyone with Slav in their name. Vladislav, yeah, okay, get it. And I saw that Magnus played a very good game against Wojciech, and there's 2 things you should try to do. One idea is to pressurize the weakened square on b7, which is normally defended by the bishop, and it can be a target by bringing the queen out. And the other idea is just to try to win the bishop pair with a well-timed knight h4, hoping that your light square bishop will play a big part later on in the game. So c4 is the right move now, because it does put some pressure here, and it does allow the queen out. What is Black's idea behind this move? Well, after the next move we see it. The idea behind this move is simply that Black wants to develop his pawns in a standard way, but he wants to get his bishop on a much superior square. Now, if White played very slowly here, let's just say, well, we see knight c3 in the game, so we'll come to that. Knight c3, knight to f6. And now if White just, let's say, played bishop f4, bishop e7, e3, let's just put these moves on the board. We get a standard Queen's Gambit, but the bishop is much more active, because in these positions the bishop is normally back on c8, where it has to try and get to b7 to get in the game eventually on this file. So that is Black's thinking at the moment. So Aronian plays c4. This is the right way. You've got to test this position. And it should be pointed out that queen b3, that other plan I mentioned, it is not actually the right way to play here. It's too greedy. Because rather than Black passively defending this pawn, he's always going to give the pawn up, and if we take that pawn, knight b4, and this can lead to absolute disaster for White, with a big threat on c2 and the chance of getting the queen captured. Black has at least a draw here by playing this. You don't want to do this. So back to the game, and after knight f6, Aronian now played the perfect move. Knight f6 was kind of needed to defend that pawn. What was the second plan, can you remember, that White should be doing when the bishop comes out early? It's the idea that Magnus, I noticed again from Magnus, probably other players have played it, and this is one thing about these games I'm trying to show you, and maybe other games you see elsewhere. if you could try to remember a key idea or two, not memorizing the moves, but the key idea, the bishop comes here, you want to get rid of it. This is a surefire way to improve your chess, because when you're playing those positions, you'll know that the plans that stronger players than you have played, and you can implement them in your own games. Now here, bishop g6 is as good as any move, and now queen b3 was played just to see what black's going to do. Knight c6, and again taking here far too risky, so Lev just makes some exchanges now, and he plays e3, ensuring this pawn, but this is not really ideal. I do doubt this queen b3. I wonder if this move was the right way to play. If we go back there, I don't know what the right strategy is here. Maybe black's opening is just an interesting, decent way to play. But if we go back to the game, after e3, I'm kind of thinking, well, if the queen's there, it's not really doing anything if it's never taking there. Black plays bishop b4, and the only thing that Lev can do is win the bishop pair. Bishop d2, and around here, I feel the position should be roughly even. I mean, okay, white's got the bishops, black doesn't have any major problems. Black castles kingside, which is a fine move. Maybe on a more aggressive day, black could have gone something like queen d6, hitting h2, and gone queenside. That would have been probably too risky, I feel, with the open c file and ideas of knight b5, but certainly an interesting option with black. Maybe even have tactics of knight takes here in some positions and a knight coming to e4. This would have been a very interesting way to play. So after castles, bishop d3, rook e8, white castles, and I don't like this next move from Vladislav. It's a very solid position, and I think it's just called for connecting the rooks, something like this, and this way, you know, your bishop can often come back here, because if queen take here, you're defending your knight. Rook b8 comes, and this is a normal move. For some reason, black now gives up his bishop pair, and okay, the bishops aren't fantastic, but they do have great long-term possibility, and now Aronian plays this perfectly. This is the kind of position where you just think, okay, how do I open up the position? And this is a very standard pawn structure. Black has to defend this pawn, and can you see what the right plan is here? Well, the right plan is you need to open up the position for your bishops, so you've got to look for pawn breaks. You can't really do much here without using a pawn break, and the pawn break to go for is e4, but supported by f3, a very standard pawn break in this structure. You have a majority of pawns here against your opponent's pawns. You have more pawns in that area of the board, so go for this pawn break. And after rook e1, g5, f3, we can see that this break at some point is going to be very strong. The pieces are just going to flood into the position. Queen d6, a3, and now g4, and Vlad is trying to do something. If he doesn't do anything, then just e4 is coming through, and this is just going to be crushing at the right time. But the problem is, by playing this move, this is maybe a typical case of playing moves on the area of the board where you are weakest, and you should try to avoid that. And in actual fact, now white gains very active play on the f-file. Black plays the normal moves, but after rook to this square, probably black is already losing. The only hope he has is this square, but it doesn't even do anything when he puts his knight there. White's rooks are just far too strong, the bishop is strong, and the killer maneuver here, getting all the pieces into the game, is the brilliant queen e1, which also defends that one. And the simple idea after knight e4 is to play queen h4 and just now attack with these four pieces. And after g6, rook h3, the killing move. And there's nothing that can be done to stop checkmate. Obviously Vlad didn't defend well here, but it was a very tough position, and it shows you how a certain pawn break at the right time can just completely win the game. And after queen f6, just simply bishop takes e4, releasing the rook on the queen, and Lev goes ahead in the match. So really the key moment here was this idea that Lev found of just playing for e4. This g4 idea made it a bit easier for white, but at some point when this e4 move comes supported with a pawn, it's going to be so strong because that pawn's going to come through to e5 and the pawns are just going to march on. It takes a little bit of preparation. If we go back to that square, I mean, g4 was a bad move. How do we play it? Because obviously d4 might be on pre after e4. Well, I think if, let's say black does nothing, probably what I do is get my queen to the area of the board where the action is, as we saw in the game. I'm just going to play nothing moves here. And maybe over defend this pawn. And you can see now I could even bring a rook around to defend that pawn. And eventually I'm just going to play this break. The bishop here is very good, even with a queen coming in, trying to come into h7. It's just, you've got this long-term break. So make sure you look out for those pawn breaks. And you can be patient with them often. You don't need to play them straight away. But you'll find often in a game chess, the side that has the pawn break is the side that will win in positions where there's not much else going on, because that pawn break is always lingering there, and executed at the right time will win the game. Now the other game that we're going to look at briefly is the game between Magnus Carlsen and Liren. And this was very strange. Magnus played the English and we had the very standard position. e3 is a move Magnus has played, and here after knight c6, a very peculiar move, and you can see that Magnus has tried lots of moves here, and he plays queen b3, which I find very weird. It's obviously to try and control d5. It can't be a bad move, but again, Magnus experimenting. If I was black here, I'd probably play g6, just thinking what is the most logical move against this, and just simply castling looks sensible. Bishop b4 was played, and now Magnus gets his hold on d5, so still very unique opening. And really, this game is a perfect Magnus game. It's the kind of game which not many human beings in the history of chess could play as white, beating someone as strong as Ding. This was the only win giving Magnus the lead. It required really moves that don't seem to do a lot, but are always improving the position. Great understanding of stopping your opponent's counterplay in most chances, and just getting little bits here and there. And you know, it doesn't look like he does much. He plays all these weird little moves. Okay, he brings his pieces out, and now he moves his knight back, and he's figuring, okay, I mean, this position must be even, and he just aims to outplay Ding. Ding, a crazy tactician, and I think he's just trying to keep it very solid. Now knight e7 is played. Maybe an idea of c6 looks very logical. I mean, another idea was to bring the bishop out. This pawn can't be taken, like in the last game. Knight b4 is very strong. And maybe after something like bishop e2, black could have changed the pawn structure of e4. I might have been tempted to do that if I was black, just to try and get some action. Now again, just look at the moves, and just castling, rook e8, bishop d2. I mean, these bishops aren't doing a great deal. And now the next move, again, only Magnus it could play a move like this. I mean, if I was playing white here, I'd be looking at trying to win this bishop. Well, you know, exchange that bishop. I'd be looking at standard advancing, and he just plays the extremely patient rook on fd1. And I've seen him play these little rook moves a lot of the time, just showing great patience, lining the rook up on a good square for later on, and he just knows where to put his pieces. Bishop b6, knight e4, and this is a standard idea, c6, and now the bishop starts to creep in, knight h7, bishop b4, and here I think d5 is where things start to go wrong for Ding. It looks natural, but it allows Magnus to get the bishop pair. I think Ding had to play in more of his spirit and play c5, which I understand he doesn't want to play because it makes his bishop bad and weakens that square. But after bishop f1, f5, knight c3, trying to use that square, and around here black has some chances with these pawns to create something against the white king just by throwing them up the board. Of course, Magnus's idea is to use this square and play very positionally, so you know, it's a game. The way things went, well, Magnus did win the bishop pair, and he now goes to take over the file, and he improves his pieces. g3, bishop f1, okay, we have some exchanges, bishop c3, and the bishops, these pawns, if anything, are a little bit weak in the center. They're not very mobile. Rook e1, rook c1, trying to take over the file, and he gets the other bishop here, and they're just a little bit nipping. But saying that, in this position, black can't be doing too badly. But this is maybe something. Maybe Magnus has also worked out what Ding's weakness is. I think it could be his patience. He loves attacking, but when he often wants to force the issue, and it often works brilliantly. But you can't always force the issue. You know, sometimes it's better to wait, which Magnus can do forever. You know, slowly try and dim things out. This is something I think Ding needs to learn. And here, just a waiting move like, let's say, rook e7 or king h7, just waiting must be best. He plays e4, and the problem with this is if it doesn't work, you are giving white this great bishop and also the d4 square. And after a capture here, knight d2, suddenly this bishop takes f6 and the pawn is weak. So Ding's idea is knight g4, rook f1, and now knight takes f2, which looks scary. If we take it, bishop takes e3. But after knight c4, black is just lost. The knight is lost and white is just simply defending it. And this is a case of a grandmaster winning by playing lots of moves, but winning by not doing much. By he is doing a lot, but he's really allowing his opponent to do the damage and just not playing bad moves. And that's something else just to bear in mind. You don't have to always force the issue. You can just play good moves and make sure you're not playing mistakes. And it's often the last person who blunders or makes a mistake that will lose. And if that's not you, you'll probably win. And after this knight tries to get out, well, yes, at the moment it's okay, but now knight takes b6 and the queen comes in. So that's my roundup. Remember to like and subscribe to this video. We've got England playing, so I'm going to keep it quite short. I'll be back with the last day's commentary on this tomorrow. And having a look at the standings, that means that Vladislav must get at least 2.5 out of 4 tomorrow. Any other result, and Aronian is the winner, and the same goes for Ding. What do you think will happen? Be interested to know, but I'll see you tomorrow for that action.